What's up everyone and welcome to another Warframe video. Another week means another reset and Incarnon adapters to chase in the Steel Path circuits. There's some interesting choices this week, expecting most people are going to go for the Bolter and Lex, so I decided to pick one I doubt many will go for, and that is the Ceramic Dagger. Now I'll be honest, how many people actually remember the Ceramic Dagger, well, even exists? It's an awful weapon, it's poor base damage, terrible crit chance, terrible crit damage, no slash. Generally, it's just one of the worst melees out there. It's a good candidate for a bit of help with the Incarnon system. So what help does it actually get? Well, it's got some really interesting upgrades. The base Incarnon mode makes it throw some spectral daggers which do seem to do impact and heat damage. Seems to have a forced impact proc from what I can tell, with a chance to proc heat. It's hard to tell because the Incarnon stats don't show in the stats screen, so it's mostly from testing that I'm saying this. However, we do know what upgrades you get from the Incarnon levels. Evolution 2, you get two options. Primary weapon kills permanently increase your combo counter up to a max of an additional 5x multiplier, and that adds on to any initial combo stuff you can have on the weapon, whilst also buffing your base damage. This lasts until you die. Or you can select another base damage increase with a further large bump in base damage for 8 seconds if you break an enemy's shields and then melee them. Evolution 3, super simple, plus 1 range, plus 20 initial combo, or melee kills have a chance to reload primary and secondary weapons. And then the final evolution, crit damage increase if you attack an enemy with your primary first, or you'll get an increase in status chance, or an increase in crit chance. So what's our build? Let's deal with that before we talk about whether it's good and how to maximise the weapon. For our Incarnon selection, we're going to go with Gun and Blade, and that's going to increase our base melee counter by 1 every time we get a kill with the primary. Adept Reflexes for the plus 20 initial combo, and then Absolute Valor for the crit chance. Then our build is a very slight variation on a standard heavy attacker. We got a double umbral for base damage and crit chance, and then they're buffing each other. Gladiator Might and Amalgam Organ Chatter is going to buff that horrendous base crit multiplier. Killing Blow is going to buff up the heavy attacks, and Reflux Coil for heavy attack efficiency. The final mod slot is going to be up to you really. In the footage I'm running Gloom, so I don't need Life Strike, but that would be the normal option, especially if you're not running Gloom. With Gloom, I would recommend running Focus Energy to give max heavy attack efficiency. You're also going to combine with that heat for radiation damage and radiation procs, and radiation damage is a very, very, very good damage type. The heavy attack efficiency really helps keeping that combo multiplier high, and you don't end up with these huge spikes in lost damage. In fact, this is part of the reason why most of you may have noticed there's no speed mod on here. The base heavy attack speed with the Amalgam mod I've found to be fast enough, and honestly I just needed this to hit harder, but it also gives more time for that combo to rebuild, so you don't end up with those huge peaks and troughs in the damage. So what's the playstyle? Well, this is a little bit more important to talk about than most Incarnons, although honestly only a little more so. At the start of a mission you need to get about 100 kills to push the combo counter to the 7x, and that is going to be your max with this build. Then you're going to drop into Incarnon mode and start slaying out with the dagger. The great thing is you are over the 6 times multiplier, which you need to transform the weapon at all times, so you never have to worry about rebuilding combo to drop back into Incarnon mode. You can just absolutely slay out and not have to worry about the Incarnon timer. So what do I think of the Ceramic Dagger with its Incarnon mode? Well, the base damage is still absolutely terrible. There's no saving that thing when it's not transformed, and it takes a bit longer, like in general this weapon, takes a bit longer than the other Incarnon weapons to set up, but in some missions it's not even going to be worth it. It's not going to be worth taking the time to build up that combo multiplier. But honestly, those missions aren't really what this weapon's designed for. It's designed for missions where you're going to be spending a little while in there. You can build those primary kills really easily. When you're solo in Steel Path with a decent primary, you can be stacked in the first couple of minutes, which honestly isn't that bad at all. This weapon, I'll be honest, took me a while to get the hang of. Messed around with maybe 10 mod combos, messing about with attack speed, relentless combination, even spring-loaded blade. There was a whole load of mods that we could use to replace the normally mandatory corrupt charge. But once I settled on the build that I just showed, it felt like the weapon finally just unlocked. It's unconventional whilst being conventional. No speed is something you don't really often do, but honestly you can see it in the footage. This absolutely is more than strong enough to absolutely slaughter Steel Path, and fast enough to not feel terrible. I split this footage into some Anaras and some Banshee, just so you can see what this does both with and without a damage buff. That way you can see the potential this weapon genuinely does have. It's actually a lot better than I ever gave it credit for. The great thing is, honestly, a Riven is going to help out massively too. Make sure to get one with above 90% heavy attack efficiency. Now you can replace 2 mods and put something else onto your build. Maybe the range here from Spring-Loaded Blade again, so you can hit the entire world with your melee. Other than that, as long as you don't roll something negative, like with negative crit, then it's just sort of hard to go wrong with a Riven for this thing. It's well worth it, and something I think is going to take its usability up even further. It's also worth giving a couple of shoutouts to a couple of things on the weapon. This can be used as a really good passive stat stick for someone like Cora on a Whipclaw build. You build the weapon like you would normally do for a stat stick. You use the initial combo from the Incarnon upgrades, and then build the combo up using your primary weapon, and then you just have a big damage multiplier for your Whipclaw at all times. And the other thing I'm going to shout out is something that I've not really touched on so far, and is actually something I mentioned in the title of the video, and that is the fact that this might be the best Acolyte killer in the game right now. That's a bold claim, I know, but this thing can just one-shot the Acolytes. Because combo multiplier is not taken into account when the damage reduction is calculated on heavy attacks. Not only that, but headshots work too. Well, why does this matter? Well, the damage wave that comes with the spectral daggers that you throw follows your cursor aim, a bit like the Latron projectile from a couple of videos ago. That means you can get the heavy attack damage multiplier, then on top of that the headshot, and then on top of that the critical headshot multiplier, which means you can quite literally do this. Now this was because I managed to land a sonar headshot with Banshee, but honestly, with any damage buff at all, this thing will just destroy Acolytes. Even on frame, you can see it here, with no damage buff like my Anaros, it absolutely melts. This thing is incredible for Acolyte killing. I know some of the Incarnons have been less than stellar. I'm not hearing great things about the Skarner or even the Bolter, but this thing, honestly, this was a YOLO. It may have been good, it may have been absolutely awful, but it is a properly good weapon. I know it takes a little bit of setup, but once it's done, it absolutely shreds. Honestly, I hate saying every single video that I'm surprised by a weapon, but I started to lose faith in the Ceramic Dagger at one stage. I struggled to unlock the potential of this thing, but some testing and a bit of build crafting, and it finally came together in this incredible blender of a weapon. It's well worth putting on the weapon and rediscovering it. Absolutely going to be part of my arsenal going forward, and I will no longer be incredibly sad when this thing comes up during my Steel Path circuits. So I hope you enjoyed my look at the Incarnon Ceramic Dagger. I'll have a video for the Lex hopefully coming tomorrow, but for now I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I shall catch you in the next video.